In a distant galaxy, Miss Rimiki, a member of the proud Zumra race, struggles with difficult memories and the weight of her people's war. The Zumra, a powerful dragon-like race, face internal conflicts and external threats as they prepare to attack Earth, a world they see as their enemy. Meanwhile, Sergeant Frairen, a fierce Yapao warrior allied with humans, trains hard on a spaceship, fighting not only enemies but also the distrust and expectations of her own people. Both women face challenges that test their courage, loyalty, and hope in a universe filled with danger and betrayal. This story is emotional and tense, filled with suspense, vivid memories, and difficult choices. Miss Rimiki stood just outside the heavy brig doors. Her mind was full of uneasy thoughts. She remembered the recent talks she had with the Zumra leaders back home. The Zumra were dragon people, proud and strong. But their pride sometimes blinded them. Miss Rimiki felt anger and sadness at how the Zumra had ignored their allies, like the humans, during the war. It seemed reckless and cruel. The humans had fought hard alongside the Zumra, yet the Zumra treated them like strangers, or worse. Her thoughts drifted to Kayden, a human she had met. Kayden was different. He shared blood with those who made terrible weapons, ones that attacked like viruses. Yet, he showed Miss Rimiki that humans could be much more than fighters full of rage. Humans had hope, courage, and sometimes kindness. But even that hope could be twisted into something dark. Miss Rimiki knew she had to stop that from happening. But she did not know how. The brig door slid open with a hiss. A human guard motioned her inside without waiting. Miss Rimiki forced herself to breathe slowly and stand tall. No one could see her doubts. She had to be strong. If she showed any weakness now, it could all fall apart, her dreams, her hopes for peace, and her own future. Inside, the air was cold and harsh. The brig was built to hold prisoners, nothing more. The walls were bare metal, the floor hard and unforgiving. There was no space for comfort or kindness. This was a place of fear and pain. Miss Rimiki's eyes fell on a strange machine nearby. It was a blocky computer with wires ending in round pads. One of the humans touched the pads and prepared to place them on her temples. Electrodes, Kayden had told her once. Humans used these to read the minds of others. It was like the Zumra's psychic gifts but slower and more limited. Still, humans had made their machines powerful enough to scan even the complex Zumra mind. She allowed the human to fix the pads carefully around her head. Then she looked at the cell before her. Inside was a Mandarin prisoner. The Mandarin was a fierce dragon person, chained and angry. His mouth moved fast, spitting curses at Miss Rimiki. She knew he had been beaten, threatened, and locked away for refusing to talk. Now, they were using her to dive deep into his mind and find what his lips would not say. The Mandarin's anger filled the small room. His eyes burned with rage as he screamed. Miss Rimiki's own psychic power rose in response. Her fronds floated gently around her head, glowing softly. The air thickened with buzzing energy, a battle of minds. The Mandarin tried to resist, but the human's machine pushed in like fire, burning memories away until his will broke like a thin glass. Suddenly, the machine hissed and crackled. Images flashed in Miss Rimiki's mind. She was no longer in the brig. She stood in a crowded hall of orange stone, filled with shouting Mandarins. Their muscles were thick and strong, their faces fierce with anger and fear. The hall was large and dark, lit by white crystals hanging from iron chandeliers. Chains swung above, and sharp spikes pointed up from a fire pit in the center. Banners hung along the walls, some torn and faded. The crowd was wild with fury, yet the Mandarin she saw was frozen in fear. A group of 4 hooded figures stood on a raised platform near the fire. Their armor was strange, made of broken bones and strange symbols. One threw crystals into the fire pit, and black flames roared up with a sound like thunder. The hall shook, and the crowd fell silent. Miss Rimiki felt the fear and power filling the room. The leader of the group pulled back his hood, revealing a crown of crystals and bones. He spoke in a deep voice, declaring their plan to attack Earth. They called Earth the Leviathan and vowed to destroy its most precious treasure. The crowd howled in approval, but the Mandarin she saw was sick with dread. He knew the danger. The four avatars were gods in their people's eyes, chosen to lead and inspire. Yet this plan felt wrong to him. Suddenly, the heavy doors slammed open. A small group entered, their armor worn and damaged. Their symbols were cut or broken. They moved like shadows, their presence heavy with pain and loss. They were called the Assimilators, outcasts who had lost faith in the old ways. A female leader stepped forward. She wore armor made of scraps and crystals, her broken fronds moving like hers. Her voice was strong as she warned the crowd that storming Earth was a foolish mistake. Her words brought silence and doubt. The avatars and the crowd shouted back, refusing to listen. The female leader challenged the avatars to a trial of blood, a fight to decide who would lead the people. The hall exploded with tension. Miss Rimiki felt her own heart race, caught between hope and fear. The trial began with fierce blows and angry words. The battle was more than strength, it was the fight for the soul of the Zumra people. Miss Rimiki felt the heat of the fire and the cold of doubt clashing inside her. As the memory faded, Miss Rimiki felt the burn of the interrogation returning. She pushed herself to move on, knowing the truth lay deeper still. The pain in her head grew sharp. Voices shouted and drums pounded. She saw the battlefield and smelled the smoke of war. Her mind filled with images of soldiers fighting humans aboard a great ship. She felt the rage and desperation as her Mandarin led a fierce attack. Humans called them zombies, mindless warriors driven by fury. The battle was brutal. Miss Rimiki felt the pain of loss and the fire of hope. She felt the wounds her people had suffered and the scars they carried deep inside. Suddenly, the memory ended. Miss Rimiki gasped, falling forward as the humans helped her steady herself. Her head buzzed and her breath came fast. Blood dripped from her nose, mixing with the sweat on her skin. Her vision blurred and darkened. The world around her faded as exhaustion and pain took hold. The humans' voices reached her faintly, trying to bring her back. Fran woke suddenly in the darkness of the Big Mouth base, the spaceship where she lived and trained. She blinked, trying to clear the fog in her mind. Standing above her was another Yapao, a fellow warrior from her people. The female's bright eyes shone with excitement despite waking Fran so suddenly. "I'm sorry, Sergeant Frairen," the Yapao said softly, "but I was too excited to wait. Can you help me train?" Fran's tiredness pushed against her will, but she saw the hope in the younger Yorpal's face. That hope was something Fran had learned to respect. She nodded. "I don't have anything better to do," Fran said with a tired smile as she sat up and stretched. The Yapao, named Maya, practically bounced with joy. They left the cramped bunk area and moved toward the ship's small training space. The training area was simple but effective. There were places to practice hand-to-hand combat and sections for target practice. Fran watched as Maya warmed up, moving awkwardly but with strong spirit. Fran admired Maya's determination to improve. "You're amazing," Maya said suddenly, looking at Fran with admiration. "What do the humans feed you? You make a big splash back home on Dagmar Prime." Fran's ears twitched at the mention of her home world. Dagmar Prime was beautiful but had become a place of hard memories. Fran felt both homesick and angry thinking of it. Maya moved to strike a dummy with a strong punch. "Thinking of becoming a cow?" Fran teased lightly. The joke made Maya lose her focus, and her punch missed. She laughed nervously. "No way," Maya said quickly. "I'm not strong enough for that." Fran smiled and stepped forward. She shifted Maya into a better stance, the one Fran had learned through years of fighting with humans. "You don't stand right. You won't get far like that." Maya tried to copy the stance but quickly slid back to her old way. Fran corrected her again, firmer this time. You need to change what you think you know, Fran said. Training with humans is tough. It will break you down and build you back up. Maya listened, nervous but eager. Did you learn this at home too? Fran teased with a grin. Maya nodded, but Fran could tell she felt unsure. Fran took a deep breath and showed Maya how to punch and kick with power and balance. Each strike sent a small tremor through the floor. Maya tried hard to copy, improving with every move. Suddenly, the training room door slid open. Two male Yapals entered, walking straight toward Fran and Maya. Their eyes held no respect for Maya and a cold, challenging look for Fran. The lead male's voice was low and sharp. Kawaii, the elders want a word with you. Fran's ears pricked. She stepped forward, ready to stand her ground. She shoved the data plate the male offered back into his chest. He stumbled but quickly regained composure. Watch yourself, the other male warned, raising his hackles. This place isn't like Dagmar Prime. Don't forget that. Fran stood firm, ears forward and eyes locked on them without fear. The males tried to match her confidence but slowly backed down, muttering curses as they left. Maya stayed back, her ears flattened and tail curled nervously. I'm sorry, Sergeant, she whispered. Thank you for the help. Fran gave her a hard look that said no more was coming. Maya hurried off to bed. Fran sighed deeply and turned back to the training dummies. Her anger and frustration were still tight inside her muscles. She needed to fight, even if it was just against the dummy. The data plate beeped softly in her hand. The elders had sent a message. They wanted to speak with Fran. She tapped the plate and the screen lit up with the stern faces of the Yapal elders. Their voices were cold, their eyes sharp. Kawaii, it is kind of you to accept our invitation, one sneered. Fran said nothing. The elders watched her, waiting. Another elder spoke. Humans have contacted us about your latest mission. They reported a Mandarin spliced with traits from other races. Is this true? Fran nodded. Yes. It's true. The elders exchanged glances, clearly uneasy. How were you injured? Another asked. Fran explained simply. They rigged a teleportation bay with explosives. We tore through the ship, but some got hurt. She studied the elders' faces. They were full of doubt and suspicion. Fran felt anger rise. Why am I the one they sent to speak with? She asked silently. She knew there were others more loyal, more trusted. The elder with black and white fur finally spoke. It is your duty to return home. Fran's fur bristled. Her eyes widened. No, she snapped. The elders' faces shifted with surprise and anger. The black and white elder slammed his desk. You will respect your elders. You will listen. You cannot ignore your duty any longer. Fran growled softly. I'm doing more here than I ever could back home. I refuse to be chained to a group that cannot see the bigger picture. The elder stood and shouted. Kawaii. You will show respect. Fran spat back, if you want human training, come train yourselves. Or ask the humans. We're allies. Her anger filled the room. The elder slowly sat down again, grumbling. Very well. We are done, he said as the screen went dark. Fran stared at the blank data plate for a moment. Then she threw it down. Turn in for the night, she ordered the others. No one out of their bunks. The two males from before left silently. Maya lingered. Her ears were flat, her tail low. I'm sorry, Sergeant, Maya said quietly. Thank you for the tips. Fran's hard look stopped Maya from saying more. Maya quickly left. Fran sighed and went back to the dummies. Her anger had not faded. She needed this space to burn it away the next morning. the big mouth base buzzed with quiet energy. Fran woke early, her body stiff from the night's training and the weight of the elder's words still heavy on her mind. She dressed quickly and headed to the ship's command deck. The hum of the engines was steady, but Fran felt restless. Maya was already there, practicing moves quietly by the bulkhead. When she saw Fran, her eyes lit up with hope. "Good morning, Sergeant," she whispered. Fran nodded but didn't speak. Her mind was full of questions and worries. How long could she stand against her people's rules? How much longer before the war tore everything apart? The ship's AI chimed softly. Incoming transmission from Fleet Command. Fran stepped forward and activated the screen. The image of Captain Var appeared, stern and focused. "Sergeant Frairen," he began, "we have new orders. Intelligence suggests the Mandarin forces are gathering strength near the border worlds. Your unit is to lead a recon mission to gather more information." Fran swallowed hard. The Mandarin, her enemy, was growing stronger. The thought tightened her chest. "Understood, Captain," she said firmly. The transmission ended. Fran turned to Maya. "Get ready. This mission could change everything." Later, the ship docked near the border planet known as Tharxis. The world was rough and wild, with jagged mountains and thick forests. Fran's unit moved carefully through the dense trees, alert for any sign of the enemy. The Yapal soldiers whispered among themselves, their tails twitching nervously. Fran led them, eyes sharp and senses tuned. Suddenly, a distant roar echoed through the trees. Fran signaled to stop. The air grew thick with tension. Ahead, dark shapes moved between the trees, mandarins, heavily armed and fierce. Fran's heart pounded as she studied their formation. They were preparing for war. Fran motioned for her unit to hide and watch. She needed to learn what the mandarins planned. As she watched, a figure stepped forward. It was Atrix, the hooded avatar she had seen in Miss Rimiki's memory. His voice carried power as he spoke to the gathered mandarins, rallying them to fight. Fran felt a chill. The mandarins were united under dangerous leadership. Back on the ship, Fran met with her team to plan. "We need more than just information," she said. "If the mandarins attack, Earth and our allies will be at risk." Maya looked worried. "But we don't have enough forces to fight them all." Fran nodded. "We'll do what we can. We have to." Meanwhile, Miss Rimiki recovered slowly from the interrogation. Her head still throbbed from the mind scans, but her resolve was stronger. She could no longer ignore the cracks within her people. The fight for the future of the Zumra was far from over. She met with Caden in a quiet room aboard the human ship. "The mandarins are divided," she said. "Some want to fight, others want peace. The avatars are strong, but the assimilators still hold power." Caden frowned. "That means the war could tear your people apart." Miss Rimiki nodded. "And if they destroy Earth, nothing will survive." They both knew the stakes were higher than ever. Fran trained harder, pushing herself and Maya through grueling exercises. Each day, the weight of leadership pressed down on her shoulders, but she refused to break. One night, as the ship sailed through cold space, Fran stood alone looking out at the stars. The silence was broken by Maya's soft voice. "Sergeant, do you think we can win?" Fran turned, seeing the young Yorpal's hope and fear. She smiled faintly. "We have to," Fran said. "For all our people, for the future." Suddenly, the ship's alarms blared. Red lights flashed. The ship shook as an explosion rocked the hull. Fran grabbed her weapon and raced to the command deck. "What's happening?" she shouted. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "We're under attack. Mandarins have boarded the ship." Fran's heart raced. The war was no longer far away. It was here. She led her team through dark corridors, fighting off waves of fierce enemies. The air was thick with smoke and the sound of battle. Fran fought with all her strength, every punch and kick fueled by the need to survive and protect her people. In the chaos, she spotted a familiar figure, Miss Rimiki. The Zumra woman moved with purpose, her psychic energy glowing as she helped defend the ship. Their eyes met for a brief moment. Neither spoke, but an unspoken understanding passed between them. Together, they pushed back the attackers, buying time for the crew to regain control. After the fight, the ship was damaged but still alive. Fran and Miss Rimiki stood side by side, breathless but determined. "This war is bigger than any one of us," Miss Rimiki said quietly. Fran nodded. "We have to find a way to end it. Before everything burns." The stars outside held endless possibilities, but the battle was far from over. The ship floated through the dark space, wounded but still alive. The damage from the attack was clear, sparks flew from broken panels, and the hum of the engines was uneven. Fran moved with purpose, helping the crew repair what they could. The fight had been hard, and everyone knew more danger was coming. Miss Rimiki stayed close, her mind racing with thoughts of the war and the future. She had seen too much in the Mandarin's memories, anger, fear, and a terrible pride that refused to yield. But she had also seen the cracks, doubts, fights, and broken bonds among her people. Fran watched Miss Rimiki carefully. The Zumra woman was strong and proud, but there was sadness in her eyes. Fran understood. She had felt that same pain when her own elders had turned against her. They both fought for something bigger than themselves. That night, Fran and Miss Rimiki met in the ship's quiet hall. The stars outside twinkled like distant promises, cold and bright. "We can't let this war destroy everything," Fran said softly. Miss Rimiki nodded. "The avatars believe in power and blood. The assimilators seek survival and change. Both sides want control." Fran clenched her fists. "And in the middle, there are those like us, trying to find a better way." Miss Rimiki looked out the window, her fronds shimmering faintly. "If we don't act soon, the war will consume all of us." Together, they planned. They would seek out the assimilators and try to build a bridge between the divided Zumra. They needed to stop the avatars before their war reached Earth and beyond. But first, they had to survive. Days passed in tense preparation. Fran trained the Yapao soldiers harder than ever. Maya grew stronger, her strikes sharper and her confidence rising. Fran saw the fire in Maya's eyes, the same fire that had kept her fighting all these years. One evening, as the ship glided through a nebula of swirling colors, Fran and Maya practiced together. Their movements were fluid, a dance of strength and grace. Fran felt a rare moment of peace. Suddenly, the ship's sensors beeped urgently. A warning flashed on the screen, a large fleet was approaching fast. The Mandarins. Fran's heart sank. The war was coming to them again. The crew scrambled to prepare defenses. Fran took command of the soldiers, her voice clear and strong. "Hold the line. Protect the ship." Miss Rimiki stood beside her, her psychic energy rising like a shield. The battle began. Laser fire lit the darkness of space, bright and deadly. Ships collided with thunderous crashes. The big mouth base shook as enemy fighters closed in. Fran led the charge inside the ship, fighting through narrow corridors filled with smoke and sparks. The Mandarins were fierce, but Fran's team fought with skill and heart. In the chaos, Fran spotted a group of enemy soldiers heading toward the engine room. If they reached it, the ship would be lost. She sprinted after them, moving faster than she thought possible. Her breath came hard, but she would not let them win. With a powerful leap, Fran tackled the lead soldier. They crashed to the ground, weapons clashing. Fran's fury burned bright as she fought, every move a promise to protect her friends. Meanwhile, Miss Rimiki used her powers to calm and confuse the enemy. Her fronds glowed with soft light, and waves of psychic energy rippled through the halls. The mandarins faltered, unsure of what they faced. Together, Frairen and Miss Rimiki pushed back the attackers, their strength a beacon of hope in the dark. But victory came at a cost. The ship groaned, warning lights flashing. The hull was weakening. Fran looked around, panic rising. "We have to get to the escape pods," she shouted. The crew moved quickly, guiding the wounded and preparing to evacuate. Fran checked on Maya, who was shaken but alive. "Ready?" Fran asked. Maya nodded, gripping her weapon tightly. They raced to the escape pods just as explosions rocked the ship. Fran fired off a last shot, covering the retreat. The pod launched, shaking violently as it sped away. Outside, the big mouth base burned, a brilliant flare in the black void. Fran and Maya looked out the small window, watching their home slip away. Miss Rimiki's voice came over the comms, calm but determined. "This is not the end. We will fight. We will find peace." Fran nodded, tears stinging her eyes. Together. The pod sped toward the unknown, carrying hope and the promise of a new beginning. The escape pod drifted through the silent void, carrying Fran, Miss Rimiki, Maya, and a few others away from the burning wreck of the Big Mouth base. The small cabin was cramped and cold. The hum of the pod's life systems was the only sound. Outside, the stars moved slowly past the window, silent witnesses to their flight. Fran sat with her knees drawn up, her mind racing. She looked at Maya, who was tense but determined. Across the small space, Miss Rimiki closed her eyes, focusing her thoughts, calming the restless storm inside. They had escaped death, but the war was far from over. Miss Rimiki finally spoke, her voice steady but soft. "Our people are broken, torn by pride and fear. The avatars seek control through blood and power. The assimilators fight for survival in any way they can. The humans, they hold hope. But none of this will matter if we don't change." Fran nodded slowly. "I've seen what war does. It burns everything. If we want peace, we must be willing to fight not just with weapons, but with our hearts and minds." Maya looked up, her eyes bright. "But how? We're just a few. How can we stop all this?" Fran's voice was firm. "By starting. We find others who want peace. We build a new path. One step at a time." Miss Rimiki opened her eyes, meeting Fran's gaze. "Then let us begin." The pod sensors picked up a faint signal nearby. A small planet, untouched by war. It was a chance, a place to regroup and gather allies. As they prepared to land, Fran felt a flicker of hope. The road ahead would be long and hard. They would face enemies on all sides. But for the first time in a long time, she believed in a future worth fighting for. The pod touched down softly on the planet's surface. The air was cool, filled with the scent of fresh grass and distant flowers. The sky was wide and blue, a sharp contrast to the cold stars they had left behind. Fran stepped outside, feeling the solid earth beneath her feet. Maya followed, already scanning the horizon for danger. Miss Rimiki stayed close, her fronds glowing faintly in the sunlight. They had escaped the fire of war, but the real battle was just beginning. Word spread quietly among those who still dreamed of peace. Rebels from the assimilators, humans tired of endless fighting, and even some Zumra who doubted the Avatar's path, all came together on this new world. Fran and Miss Rimiki worked side by side, sharing stories, strategies, and hopes. The fire of their friendship grew stronger with each passing day. Yet, shadows lurked. The Avatars had not forgotten them. Atrix and his followers sent hunters to find and destroy the new alliance. Battles flared in the forests and mountains, each one more brutal than the last. Fran fought with all her strength, protecting the fragile hope that had grown. Maya became a fierce warrior, her skills sharpening in the face of danger. Miss Rimiki's psychic powers became a shield and a sword, guiding their people through the darkness. One night, under a sky filled with strange stars, Fran and Miss Rimiki sat by a small fire. The others had gone to rest, leaving the two warriors alone. Fran looked into the flames. "Do you think we can really change things? Can we stop the avatars?" Miss Rimiki's gaze was steady. "I do not know. But I believe in what we fight for. That is enough." They shared a quiet moment, the firelight dancing on their faces. In the distance, the sound of drums echoed, a reminder that the war was never far away. Days turned into weeks. The alliance grew, gathering strength and hope. Plans were made to face the avatars in a final battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. When the day came, the skies darkened with ships and warriors. Fran stood at the front, her heart pounding but her spirit unbroken. Miss Rimiki stood beside her, a calm force amid the storm. The battle was fierce and terrible. Laser fire streaked through the sky. Psychic waves crashed against metal shields. The ground shook with the fury of warriors clashing. Fran fought like a storm, her strikes precise and deadly. Maya was at her side, unstoppable and fierce. Miss Rimiki used her powers to shield their allies and weaken their foes. Her fronds glowed with radiant light, a beacon of hope. Atrix appeared, his crown of bone and crystal shining with dark power. He faced them with a sneer. "You think you can change fate?" he growled. "The avatars rule by blood and strength. You will fall." Fran stepped forward. "We fight for choice, for peace. Your reign ends here." The battle turned to a final duel between Fran and Atrix. They clashed with fury, strength, and will. The sky seemed to hold its breath. In the end, Fran's heart won. With one last blow, she struck Atrix down. His crown shattered, and his dark power faded. The avatar's hold on the Zumra broke. The people saw a new path, one of hope, unity, and peace. Fran, Miss Rimiki, and Maya stood together, tired but victorious. The war had changed them forever, but they had found something greater, a chance to build a better future. The stars above shone bright once more, guiding them toward a new dawn.